When talking the best of the best, every name's gotta be included. Achievements must be compared, moments need to be picked apart, largely to describe the larger-than-life personalities some of the best footballers possess. This moment brought me to this video.
He's the best in the world at him in terms of, you know, that position of offensive midfield player, really, in that inside right. I don't think there is anyone better.
A player you've never played with at club or international level but would want to play with at Liverpool.
Kevin De Bruyne.
Chapter 1. Reliability. Field full of stars, Bruyne has never not been surrounded by some of the game's best players. He's also never had a bad season in the Premier League. Germany to England, and he's been dominant in every single season to date. As hands clamor to stop City's dominance, we can only remember a few figurehead that can stand tall in every Manchester City team through the glory years. Bruyne has never played second fiddle. He's making the case for not only being the best City player, but arguably the most dominant Premier League midfielder of all time.
Of course, I think it's set up in the perfect position, and I think it's so difficult for the keeper because he always expects somebody to touch it. But yeah, it was great for us, and I think we kept going, and obviously with a second goal with Riyad is good for us, but it's still a game to go, so we have to concentrate on that.
The world went into a frenzy as Bruyne's return sparked headlines. How will City, a team looking rusty in a season that they've been without two of their main stars in Kevin De Bruyne and Erling Haaland? Because how will they react? How will Kevin De Bruyne be in just his first game back? And then conversations began. So we started to research on who arguably the greatest Premier League midfielder was. And we began to read article after article, remembering how great these players were. And not only just how great, but remembering the murderous, disgusting run De Bruyne currently is on. So let's rock out. Frank Lampard is a man forgot so much by recency bias because we can't just forget how impactful he was. 898 Premier League appearances, and I'm rolling the blunt right now. Best individual stats we'll probably ever see from a Premier League midfielder, well, ever. 211 goals in that standpoint, and many would say debate over if we're remembering his importance to a Chelsea dynasty. And if Frank Lampard isn't a part of those teams, they don't win a trophy, let alone a decade of dominance. Frank Lampard is of a few select players to be on top of a club's all-time goal-scoring list, not being a striker. Jude Bellingham may want to sound like a phenomenon now, but my nigga, Frank Lampard was making it look normal to see a midfielder bag 18 plus goals a season. Because let's look at every midfielder outside of Frank Lampard's 211 goals Chelsea. The one could then make a case, he's head and fucking shoulders by far the greatest fucking scoring midfielder of all time. Gerrard, 186 goals in 710 games for Liverpool. Kaká, 124 goals, 390 for Milan. Ryan Robson with 99 goals in 461 games for United. Zidane with 49 goals in 229 games for Madrid. Luis Enrique with 109 goals in 300 games for Barca. So how does one De Bruyne beat this guy? Hulk smash, and you'll find even though Frank Lampard was good at everything, let's not get it twisted, a striker in a midfielder's body. The resume is done. Kevin's still adding, and just at 32, the resume is only being added to. He's beating Lampard in goals. He's not, but it's obvious that he can finish about the time his career is done, for sure. Whether he stays at this level remains to be seen. But even Lampard, who's literally played his entire career in the Premier League, finishing with 171 assists, he couldn't touch De Bruyne in this regard. Because like I just said, my nigga is still adding, and we're already at 239. Breathe this same air to remember, this is also the guy that equaled Thierry Henry's assist record for a single Premier League season at 20 assists in a single season. Because De Bruyne could still break that shit when you got Erling Haaland in front of you and Rodri behind you. Manchester City have been more dominant in England with having De Bruyne than Lampard has been in his entire career. Scary hours. Add this nigga to the conversation. When you look at some of the best midfielders in the Premier League has had to offer, we act almost like if Patrick Vieira in his prime wasn't human. That's not a stretch either. In a team where there was amazing midfielders everywhere, you looked in the Premier League, Patrick Vieira was the best midfielder in the world, and because statistically he doesn't boast the eye-catching numbers, but yet he's arguably the most underrated when it comes to the go-to midfielder debate. Don't choke on that take either. We're talking a midfielder pivotal to France's World Cup and Euro titles in the same period, being involved with the Invincibles, a team that didn't lose for an entire Premier League season. His leadership was elite. He could walk into any team team of the world at that time also. De Bruyne wins again, just based on the fact that I could argue Pep, just like he used Bernardo Silva in a holding role in big games without De Bruyne this season, De Bruyne, if City had ever needed to, I think he could have played the role at times that Vieira did. And then when we get on to goals and assists, it's harsh on Vieira, but he wasn't known to do that side of the game. He could if he needed to, but it really hurts him here in this argument because even with Vieira's 165 assists, which before I actually started recording data for this video, I was actually extremely impressed by, it still doesn't mean that he's a better playmaker than Kevin De Bruyne. Because who honestly is arguing who's a better playmaker in terms of Kevin De Bruyne and Patrick Vieira? Vieira inspired a winning run for Arsenal like no other, but still, Manchester City have been a winning machine. And De Bruyne has been pivotal to that. If Paul Scholes had an argument to make, I think he'd start with being only one at the table with 21 trophies. Xavi's legendary Barcelona midfielder had this to say on Scholes as a player, and I motherfucking quote, "In the last 15 to 20 years, the best central midfielder that I have seen, the most complete is Paul Scholes." I've spoken with Xabi Alonso about this many times. Scholes is a spectacular player who has everything. He played the final pass, he can score, he's strong, he never gets knocked off the ball, and he doesn't give the possession away. If he had been Spanish, then maybe he would have been valued more. Saying English tax goes both ways, but longevity is his argument. You forget outside of him being just great in the Premier League in his prime like everyone here, Scholes shows to be the guy that was able to come back at 37, be the most efficient midfielder in the Premier League that same season at 37 when Sir Alex Ferguson needed that nigga the most, and proceeded to be at 37 still at the top of his game. Scholes' return at this age, this was after months away coming from the sport, and the most important cog in the greatest Premier League manager's toolbox ever through the glory years. His engine and his ability to control games let this man beat to his own drum, complete in every way, and some would say the most complete midfielder from the list. It takes a special player to retire a Premier League champion to fucking come back in this bitch and become a Premier League champion again. What? Scholes had a very successful career at United, making his full senior debut in the 1994-95 season. The rest is history. Winning a total of 11 Premier League medals, Scholes became the most decorated English player in the top division. He averaged 19.54 successful passes per match in the Premier League and over 1,000 successful long balls, his best trait clearly as a midfielder. He was also prolific in the final third, scoring 107 Premier League goals, and they just weren't ordinary goals either, because he was scoring Rangers from 20 yards out, and statistically he wasn't the most eye-catching, but again, arguably the most impactful.
Yeah, it is. So I'm so grumpy with Kevin and upset because the first touch was a free kick and he could not score. And this is not fair. You know, Kevin having a special thing, and now I think his physical conditions for just minutes. You know, when the opponents are a bit tired for 35, 40 minutes, and especially Oscar and Kevin have a sense of goal more than maybe Jeremy or another player. So Phil was standing, everyone was really, really good.
At 18 trophies, De Bruyne doesn't stop there. He only gets to keep at it. He could arguably have the most trophies out of the entire group by the end of this season alone. His longevity argument matches Scholes because it's arguable that with Pep managing his schedule, and if De Bruyne keeps his fitness, so with the game not predicated on athleticism, he can finish with more trophies than Scholes, playing at a higher level than Scholes, and still having every human statistic possible to outclass Scholes.
Hold.
Maybe I'm disrespectful, but I just wanted to touch on Gerrard really fast. I don't think he's really in the conversation as wild as it seems. He's not as complete as anyone on this list, including De Bruyne, and he wasn't as inefficient as Best because he couldn't control the game nowhere near to the level of his counterparts. Gerrard carried Liverpool for sure, but he's the same leg that people stand on could be spun under them when the opposer would argue it's easy to be a leader in a team that's not winning than a leader in the team consistently winning trophies for a decade like former. He had everything in his game for sure. By an attacking standpoint, for sure, when we're talking about Steven Gerrard. He is certainly versatile, being able to adapt to a deeper role in later years as well, under the Luis Suarez years. But his loyalty and the ultimate lure of staying at his boyhood club cost him this debate? Probably. Leave it in the comments. Who do you think is the greatest Premier League midfielder of all time? Okay, bye.